1. When we use the term awakening, we are referring to spiritual awakening. We do not need, however, to specify that this awakening is spiritual in nature, because spirit is what humans are by nature. Spirit descending into the physical plane in physical form to temporarily experience mortality and all that entails. Amnesia, separateness, division, discomfort, pain, misery. And on the other hand, pleasure, discovery, accomplishment, satisfaction, belonging, etc. And the journey back from all of these illusions towards the source. To live, to exist, is to awaken. 2. Awakening is a personal responsibility. Leave breadcrumbs for others, but don't imagine that they are your responsibility. Complaining about what you see as others' apparent unconsciousness, either inwardly or publicly, is missing the point and is a barrier to your own growth. Set an example without judgment. Let others find their own path at their own pace. The unconsciousness of others in no way, shape or form negates or counteracts the positive impact on the entire Earth realm of your commitment to your own awakening. 3. Everyone's awakening has parallels, but every awakening is as unique as the individual having it. Don't try to gauge someone else against your own estimation of yourself. It doesn't work that way. Equally, don't use what you might perceive as the shortcomings of others to bolster a false sense of your own standing. Yes, you are a marvellous, sparkly, mystical bastard now, having consciously acknowledged the path of awakening, but that's just the ego talking. Stay in your lane. 4. The world is not dying, or falling apart, or ending. These views are subjective, and they are a symptom of awakening, a phase which passes. They are projections of the fear and illusion-based ego mind, which as human consciousness evolves is in the process of shrinking down to a more appropriate size. If you are fixated on the subjective perspective that the world or the human race is somehow doomed or is failing, you are temporarily submerged in the egoic state. You are temporarily submerged in the illusion. We can see this absolutely everywhere nowadays, although it's nothing new. Every single culture, every civilization in every chapter of history had its doomsday scenario woven into its people's collective worldview. The world and humanity overcame every single one. Climate change and system collapse are perfect examples from recent times. AI replacing humans or a super virus wiping us out are two more such scenarios. Believing that humans deserve to be wiped out, believing that Earth would be better off without us is in the same vein. Observe your negative train of thought, do not get caught up in it, watch as it runs out of steam. Realize it was never your train of thought to begin with. Let go. This is Awakening 101 stuff. Disengage from the mainstream news or any type of information styling itself as news. Disengage from any sort of catastrophism. We've all encountered that one individual. But what about the elites? What about the far right? What about Bill Gates? What about them? Do you think these kinds of people start their day by making a list of obstacles to their own expansion and progress? 5. Learn how to spot victimhood in others and do not engage with it. You cannot wake someone else from their victimhood before they're ready, and it's not your responsibility to try. Your responsibility is to rout out your own victimhood, your own unconsciousness. Understand its root, realize its illusory nature, transmute it into awakening. Some of the most confused souls on earth are those so totally submerged in their own victimhood that they try to arouse the same in others. Also those who take up the cause for the victimhood of others. Many activists fall into this category, social justice warriors, etc. Keep your distance. 6. Narcissist is one of the most overused and misapplied words on the internet. The people throwing this word about are typically wallowing in their own victimhood and disempowerment. They are unconscious. The application of the term narcissist is not objective. It is entirely subjective. If you have a problem with someone, either address that someone directly or move away. In either approach, a move towards resolution is entirely your choice. Remaining in the victim role is also entirely your choice. The illusion that there are narcissists and non-narcissists can be dispelled simply by looking up a list of personality traits which are labelled narcissistic in nature. And if you have sufficient self-awareness and honesty, you will notice at least some of them in your own behaviour at times. In society in general, in spiritual and religious circles, and especially among those who put themselves forward as examples, it is common for people to act like they're beyond or above such things, holier than thou. We all have a dark side or we wouldn't be here. Shine a little light on yours. 7. You do not become free by tearing down or defeating your perceived oppressor, but by outgrowing your need for an oppressor. Victimhood is at some unconscious level always a choice, a need, and an oppressor of some form is a requirement for someone to be in the victim role. This isn't a bad thing. It's a plain fact based on laws of resonance and the mutual attraction of opposites. The relationship between victim and oppressor is a transactional one with mutual benefits. Let us be absolutely clear. Choosing to demonize a political leader, a public figure, a celebrity, a social media personality, choosing to fixate upon an ex or current partner, a parent or other relative, a boss or colleague, choosing to believe that they are the reason the world isn't the way it should be, or that their continued existence somehow negatively impacts your own existence, is to choose victimhood over your own potential empowerment. This is a temporary phase encountered by all awakening souls, often in cycles and to differing degrees. Awareness of it and the knowledge that it will and must end, not by the demise of the oppressor, but by your relinquishing of your need for an oppressor, will set you free. Through the process of becoming sovereign, of awakening, all perceived oppressors will slink away into the shadows from which they emerged as you shed your victimhood. But I live in a war-torn land with despotic leaders who bomb my people every day. Your continued existence is an incredible act of defiance, whether you acknowledge that fact or not. As long as you draw breath and refuse to live in fear, your perceived enemy for all his violence and threats of violence remains utterly impotent. And if you can rise above your very natural feelings of victimhood in this situation, in time you will necessarily be lifted out of your suffering. Such are the rules of this game. That could mean that you are transported from the war-torn land, or that your oppressor ceases to be. One way or another, it depends on your subjective perception of and reaction to your external circumstances. 8. Actively working to understand the source of and to release victimhood is 100% a conscious choice. It shows a greatly increased level of personal awareness and responsibility. This is a core component of awakening, which is not possible without victimhood or without an oppressor. As you shed the need, thank your oppressor. Set them free with gratitude for the mirror to your disempowerment which they so perfectly provided. 9. Awakening is automatic. It is the earth realm that is awakening, and in your temporary physical form you are part of the earth in the same way a cell is part of your body. Your non-physical true self is never not awakened, but you don't normally have access to that whilst in body, and if you do randomly encounter it with no prior conceptual understanding, you might well imagine it to be illusory. So total is our immersion in the physical experience. The fact that awakening is automatic does not in any way detract from the importance of pursuing it once you become aware that it is a thing that you can do. It doesn't have to be to the detriment of your everyday life, but some sort of regular practice, even just mindful breathing, focusing on gratitude or walking in nature is sufficient to fan the flame. If you want to quit society, take a vow of silence and live in an ashram for several years, however, knock yourself out. We all feel that way from time to time. The important thing is that you make space amidst your cluttered mind for the higher self to speak to you. 10. The only time you will directly experience your higher self is during moments of total surrender, when for one reason or another, your ego has stepped aside. For most people, this is typically only experienced under the influence of certain drugs, whilst attending a funeral ceremony, or during moments of extreme peril such as a road accident or other life-threatening situation, when the mind overloads and shuts down and the higher or true self naturally takes over. Also moments of sheer joy, Also moments when you're totally in the zone or in flow state doing something you have mastered or are in the process of mastering. Also in meditation. When you become aware of the presence of the higher self during lucid moments, you can surrender consciously and it will speak or act through you. This is a most exciting experience when it happens. Most of this document was channeled in this state. 11. Ultimately, awakening is realizing the scope and depth of the illusion of your small selfhood, leading to discovery of your true eternal self, and simultaneously realizing the scope and depth of the illusion of objective reality whilst remaining immersed in it. Awakening is not escapism, it is the truth. The escapist is the one in denial who chooses not to see the mystery and the magic inherent in existence, preferring comforting stories and theoretical models over the experience itself. This realization can be as deep and as tangible as you wish, as long as you have developed the capacity for it by consciously letting go of the mental abstractions which comprise your current experience. To cling to abstraction in the face of challenge which threatens to dissolve that abstraction is to actively resist awakening. Conversely, the bigger the abstraction released and the more total its dissolution, the deeper and more sudden the resulting awakening can be. To be clear, it is only the small self, the illusory persona, which suffers any kind of stress when confronted with uncomfortable truth. It fears its exposure as an imposter acting in place of the awakening human being. It fears its own annihilation. Annihilation is simply not possible for your formless, timeless, transcendental true self. When confronting challenging material, with a little bit of practice and self-awareness, it becomes easy to know if you're receiving information as the small self or as the true self. Developing this discernment will accelerate your awakening. 12. One of the aforementioned mental abstractions which comprise your current experience is your identity. If all you believe you are is what you think, what you have experienced, your likes and dislikes, and the things you do and have done, then this mental abstraction is an all-encompassing lens through which reality is viewed. It colours your perception of all things and necessarily causes any conflicting new information to appear as a personal challenge. No one can think clearly in this state, yet this is the state from which almost all humans perceive what they call reality almost all the time. The only way out is realizing that your identity, that is your name and everything associated with it, is illusion, is temporary, is just a story. Scary stuff, but absolutely liberating if you can commit to it enough that it becomes a familiar feeling to not know who you are, what your purpose is, what this experience we call life is. And once you're familiar with it, dare I say even comfortable with it, that becomes your baseline reality, even whilst immersed in the complexity of your character's life story. And you will always have access to that liberated, neutral state in a moment of stillness. 13. Awakening is universal. It happens for those who believe they are already as awakened as they can possibly be. It happens for those who believe that there is no such thing. There is no class or category of person for whom awakening does not happen. A suitable metaphor for this would be the life-giving rays of the sun. They shine equally on all races, all nations, all political persuasions, religions, genders, all ages. They shine on the conscious seeker and the spiritually ignorant. They shine on adulterers, rapists, addicts, and murderers as equally on those who seek to do as little harm as possible. You cannot define or prescribe worthiness by any metric, although throughout history this is exactly what countless misguided yet often well-meaning individuals have sought to do, typically under the guise of religion. Although it must be noted that secular moralists make all the same assumptions and errors. All are equally worthy simply for existing and for being part of the whole. All add their unique piece of the puzzle, without which the divine perfection of creation would be incomplete. 14. Human suffering is terrible but necessary. It is one of two basic polar forces which create contrast and give value to our earthly existence, the other being essentially our experience of the many lesser forms love takes in the earth realm, and contemplating and perhaps even glimpsing the incomprehensible paradox of transcendental divine love. We are currently identified as separate, mortal, finite human entities with all the suffering that naturally entails at times, but the choice to incarnate as such was absolutely and completely made from a place of divine sovereignty. Even if you live in a cardboard box, get dumped, lose your job and then receive a diagnosis which gives you just days to live, you can, if you so choose, see this from the perspective of having chosen it. This sounds mad or redundant only if you are presently submerged in your illusory personhood. Contemplating something like this will gradually shift your perception closer to that of your higher self, and ultimately that of universal truth. It will also make it much, much easier to change such undesirable circumstances. 15. There are those who believe this realm has been hijacked by corrupt higher dimensional beings with ill intent towards humanity who use our suffering and lower nature as an energy source. Whilst those beings certainly do exist, this is far from telling the whole story. What we in fact live in is an art project, a dramatic performance, a scientific experiment, a divine timekeeping device, a learning experience, all of these and more. And to believe it is necessarily just a prison or a farm, although there are many souls incarnated as humans and multitudes more as livestock who currently live that way, is to ignore all these other aspects of the experience. 16. Those who cultivate a victim mindset will find more things in their own subjective reality to be victimized by. Whilst that cannot directly affect another soul's subjective experience because theirs is a sovereign choice, it does feed back into the collective frequency of the Earth realm, pissing into the waters in which we all must bathe, so to speak. It is important that all receivers of this message know that you cannot be severed from your higher self but by consensual illusion. You are therefore never truly alone, despite this being a common experience for many of us at times. Love, guidance, healing, and any knowledge you need or wish to possess are yours by right of birth, and your higher self seeks to bestow these things just as you are seeking to receive them. 17. You are unique. You are perfect in your imperfection. There has never been, nor will there ever be, another like you. If you lived 100 lifetimes as the being you are now, you would not reach the end of what you are capable of learning, doing, experiencing, or expressing. There is no rational or scientific or mind-based explanation for this miraculous capacity of humans. It is further evidence of your divine origin. Our power to create, to evolve, to transform ourselves and our environment is unsurpassed. It is a diminished form of the absolute creative power of God. Whilst this is true of all humans, not all are created equal in all ways. Not all stars shine equally brightly. As you awaken and embody your higher self more strongly, whether you do so consciously or not, you will discover hidden depths, develop talents, create divinely guided works. Many of you will hide these things or guard them for fear of judgment or of being misinterpreted by others. It isn't relevant whether you express yourself publicly. Your thoughts and deeds, even if kept secret, send ripples throughout existence and affect all of the Earth realm and its inhabitants. To do so publicly is just amplifying the effect. And to put your name and face to your message with absolute confidence grounds that message into your physical form and allows you to embody it more fully in day-to-day life. 18. Ultimately, your death will bring the final awakening and the remembrance of your oneness with all, the illusory nature of physical reality and the earth, and the ultimate meaningless of all endeavours, disciplines, practices, religions, etc. It will reveal itself as just having been a game of make-believe. Living with this knowledge helps keep things in perspective, especially useful when navigating the battlefield of ideas that is social media at the dawn of Aquarius. 19. You are not nearly as awake as you think you are or could be. Keep waking up.